Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Oh, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Gurudeva. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Kodanitai Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai Jaya Maya Poshashi. Jai Iskandar ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Shri Shri Kodanitai Maya Poshashi ki Jai Nitya Goda Prema. Gora, 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 Hari. I think it's on, but it just needs to be turned up a bit. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gora, 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 Hari. Gora, 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 Hari. Gora, Hari. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. This is Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. And it's, we're still fighting, but we're chanting Hare Krishna as well. Chant Hare Krishna and fight. And the first fight is with the mind, isn't it? No, said Mr. Rajda. The last rule is most of them are communists. They said religion is opium. They didn't believe in religion at all. Therefore, Prabhupada said, they are saying something, we say something. Haribol, he says something. You manufacture something, but nobody knows what is reality. That is the difficulty. So what was the problem there? Oh, okay. And which number was it? 9? Channel 5. Okay. Just so we know the next time. I wonder how it got turned down. I wonder who that was. Maybe someone brushed it with the cloth. Unless you know the reality, to suggest and say, I suggest, it does not mean that it is a solution. This is going on all over the world. Nate vidu swatikatim hi Vishnam. People do not know that their highest self-interest is Vishnu. That's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. That's a nice one, isn't it? You can get that on a t-shirt. Nate vidu swatikatim hi Vishnam. Nobody knows that the swatikatim, the highest, is to attain Vishnu. The external features, these material features, they are concerned with that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, but they do not know that beyond this there is another element. Unless you come to that knowledge, there is no question of welfare activities. That knowledge is available in India. Srila Prabhupada accepted Mr. Rajta's visit as sincere and serious, and so he wants to convince him to fully accept Krishna consciousness if he was really serious about introducing principles of Dharma and morality into government. Real Dharma had to start with an acceptance of self-realization as the all-important goal of life. It could not succeed just by rubber stamping the government as religious. Now we have got good government, Srila Prabhupada conceded. Very nice. Now you should take advantage of the privilege which are there in India. The Bhagavad Gita is there. If you take directions from Bhagavad Gita, then the whole human society will be benefited. That you do not know. That is the defect. Even big leaders, they profess to be students of Bhagavad Gita, but they do not know anything. Although it is clearly stated, who is a leader in India who does not know Bhagavad Gita? Everyone knows. Even Maharaji Desai. When he was to be arrested by the leaders of government, he said, wait, let me finish my reading of Bhagavad Gita. Is it not? Yes, replied Mr. Rajta. Srila Prabhupada, let me finish my Bhagavad Gita, then you can harass me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we're still in the forest of enjoyment. I don't know if that's in South Lanarkshire. And we're on text. We're on the text.
No.
Beginning with, yeah, okay. So I think I'm going to run through this one. Kva chicha vatupya pomayaya pramadaya roham aropitas tat kala rajasa rajani bhuta eva sadhu mariado rajas valaksho pi devata atirajas valamatirna vijananti. Responsively, please. Kvachit. Sometimes. Cha. Also. Vachya apamaya. Maya. Compared to a whirlwind. Pramadaya. By a beautiful woman. Aroham aropita. Raised onto the lap for sex enjoyment. Tatkala rajasa. By the passion of lusty desires at the moment. Rajani bhuta. The darkness of night. Eva. Like. Asado Maryada. Who is without proper respect for the higher witnesses. Rajavala Aksha. Blinded by strong lusty desires. Happy. Certainly. Dikdevata. The demigods in charge of different directions. Like the sun and the moon. Atiraja Valamati. Whose mind is overcome by lust. Nabijanati. He does not know
He does not know
that witnesses all around
that witnesses all around
take note of his impudent sexual act.
take note of his impudent sexual act.
Translation. Sometimes, as if blinded by the dust of a whirlwind, the conditioned soul sees the beauty of the opposite sex, which is called pramada. Being thus bewildered, he is raised upon the lap of a woman, and at that time his good senses are overcome by the force of passion. He thus becomes almost blind with lusty desire and disobeys the rules and regulations governing sex life. He does not know that his disobedience is witnessed by different demigods, and he enjoys illicit sex in the dead of night, not seeing the future punishment awaiting him. Responsively, please. Sometimes, as if blinded by the dust
Sometimes as if blinded by the dust
of a whirlwind,
of a whirlwind,
the conditioned soul
the conditioned soul
sees the beauty of the opposite sex,
sees the beauty of the opposite sex,
which is called pramada.
which is called pramada.
Being thus bewildered,
Being thus bewildered,
he is raised upon the lap
he is raised upon the lap
of a woman,
of a woman,
and at that time
and at that time
his good senses are overcome
his good senses are overcome
by the force of passion.
by the force of passion.
He thus becomes almost blind
He thus becomes almost blind
with lusty desire
with lust desire,
and disobeys the rules and regulations
and disobeys the rules and regulations
governing sex life.
governing sex life.
He does not know
He does not know
that his disobedience
that his disobedience
is witnessed by different demigods,
is witnessed by different demigods,
and he enjoys illicit sex
and he enjoys illicit sex
in the dead of night,
in the dead of night,
not seeing the future punishment
not seeing the future punishment
awaiting him.
awaiting him.
Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In Bhagavad Gita 7:11, it is said, Dharma virudo bhuteshu kamo smi paratashaba. Sex is allowed only for the begetting of children, not for enjoyment. One can indulge in sex to beget a good child for the benefit of the family, society, and world. Otherwise, sex is against the rules and regulations of religious life. A materialistic person does not believe that everything is managed in nature, and he does not know that if one does something wrong, he is witnessed by different demigods. A person enjoys illicit sex, and due to his blind, lusty desire, he thinks that no one can see him. But this illicit sex is thoroughly observed by the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the person is punished in so many ways. Presently in Kali Yuga, there are many pregnancies due to illicit sex, and sometimes abortions ensue. These sinful activities are witnessed by the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and a man and woman who create such a situation are punished in the future by the stringent laws of material nature. Illicit sex is never excused, and those who indulge in it are punished life after life, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Asuram yonam apana mudha janmani janmani mad arapayeva kontaya tato yantyadamam gatim. After attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not allow anyone to act against the stringent laws of material nature. Therefore, illicit sex is punished life after life. Illicit sex creates pregnancies, and thus unwanted pregnancies lead to abortion. Those involved become implicated in these sins, so much so that they are punished in the same way that in the next life. Thus, in the next life, they also enter the womb of a woman and are killed in the same way. All these things can be avoided by remaining on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one does not commit sinful activity. Illicit sex is the most prominent sin due to lusty desire. When one associates with the mode of passion, he is implicated in suffering life after life. Om Agana Timaranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Malitam Jena Tatsmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantika Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaurabhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the forest of enjoyment, and the enjoyment is especially this sex. And then there's governing regulations, there's rules and regulations so that it can be contained. And there's a nice verse in the 11th canto, Aisha vai paramo yoga, the supreme yoga process. An expert horseman desiring to train a headstrong horse first allows the horse to go off the path, and then gradually, by pulling on the reins, gradually brings them onto the desired path. Similarly, the supreme yoga process is that by which one carefully observes the desires and movements of the mind and gradually brings them under full control. So if you run up to a horse, jump on it, and just yank the reins, there's a good chance the horse will kick you, it'll kind of buck up and flick you off, and you'll end up in the hedge head first, and the horse will be miles away. So it's with patience and determination that we practice these principles. And forewarned is forearmed, so don't think it's going to be easy. And be prepared for a long haul, generally, to retrain the stallion of the mind, which has been let loose for so long. And that's why Rupa Goswami advises be patient. And Apichat Sudaracharo is a famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, 25 or 26. And it's saying that even if a person does at times slip, he should still be considered saintly if he continues on in his determination, if he's rightly situated in his determination. And there's a nice story in that regard of a boy that was running in the race, and he was ahead of everybody else. And his dad was in the crowd, and he was going, "Come on, son, win the race. Come on, win the race." And then the boy kind of waved at his dad, turned back to the race, and tripped over a fence and grazed all his knee. And two of the boys got ahead of him. So he got back up quick, and he started running again. And his dad was saying, "Come on, son, win the race, son." So he was running, had a bit of a sore knee, but he was doing quite well. It looked like he was going to catch up with number 2, and then he fell in the ditch. And by the time he came out the ditch, everyone had gone way, way past. And he crawled out. And he was thinking of just turning back and thinking there's no point now. I haven't got a chance of winning this one. And his dad shouted out, "Come on, son, win the race." So he was thinking, "Dad, it's hopeless, you know." And now he had a few other cuts and grazes on him as well. And he was pretty messed up, had bits of twigs in his hair. Anyway, he started trotting off again. Thought, this is useless, but my dad wants me to do it. So he started running again. Anyway, everyone got in past the winning line. And the winner, of course, got a huge, everyone was really giving him a good cheer. And then about 5 minutes later, this little boy came behind everybody else. But when he crossed the winning line, he got a cheer much louder than the cheer of the one who'd won. And the boy was really surprised. And so in one sense, he won the race because he was determined despite all the difficulties that were there. And there's a nice verse that we recite before we engage in puja. Just as the ground is the only shelter for one who has fallen, so you, my dear Lord, are the only one for to give shelter to one who has offended you. So whatever the offense is, basically the offense is contained, whatever the offense is, illicit sex, shouting at an old lady, throwing a brick at somebody from a high-rise flat, whatever the sinful act is, it's contained within the 10 offenses, basically. You can't do anything outside of those 10 offenses. And whatever it is, if you're chanting attentively, then you're freeing yourself from the erection of those 10 offenses. So if you're sitting there tomorrow and you're chanting, and you're doing it very attentively, then you can pat yourself on the back because you're winning the race, despite the fact that you've tripped up along the way. So that's the challenge. Can you remember that? That the attentive chanting will chop down the root of all offense and sin. So very simple, really. Just a question of faith and determination and then nothing can stop us. As it says in the Bhagavatam, ahetaki apratiyata. This devotional service cannot be stopped or interrupted by anything. For one who's determined to go back to Godhead, then nothing will stop him. They say for the industrious there is no poverty, and for the determined there is no defeat. So there's only defeat if you give up. If you don't give up, then I guarantee you'll be successful. You just have to, of course that's not my guarantee, that's what the scriptures, what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Just continue, just continue. Keep on keeping on, whatever it is. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and continue on. And you'll win the race, even if you come in at the end. Any questions or comments?
What you were saying about attentive chanting brought to mind that I was wondering, like, does it cancel out? You need to be cautious. Is it number 7 to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting?
Well, that's an interesting one, because that's the most sinful thing they say, namno bala hasya, is to commit sin on the strength of chanting. So you can go up to a person and say, Prabhu, I know you're going to do that again, so just stop chanting. So the most sinful thing is to stop chanting, because then there's no hope. So you may be making your plans, and you think, well, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to smoke a cigar, but what I'll do, I'll chant an extra round tomorrow, and that should burn it off. So you're smoking 40 cigars a day. Temple commander's not happy. It's affecting the laundry. The ashes going onto the laundry. Saying, Prabhu, can you stop it? Oh, I'm so sorry, Prabhu. I'll try. And then again, the cigars are out the next day. But anyway, if he does continue on chanting, eventually Krishna it will dawn upon him that this is maybe not a good idea. And then he'll lose the desire to do these things. So that's how kind Krishna is. But we don't want to prolong the agony, and we don't want to make it awkward for Krishna either, difficult for Krishna, because for a devotee it's a little bit more awkward for Krishna, because Krishna knows that he exists. Then he has to be very careful how he deals with them, because he doesn't want to break the devotee's faith, you see. So the faith now is thinking, okay, Krishna's in the picture. So trying to see things that are happening in his life, the events that are happening in his life, his dialogue with Krishna, Krishna's reciprocation with him. So Krishna's got to be careful. He can't just give him his karma according to what he's due, like a normal conditioned soul just gets whatever he's due, and he doesn't have any faith to lose, really. He's just already disconnected. But for someone who's a beloved son of a father, then he's always under the vigilant guidance of the father. So the father is now going to intervene and directly observe what's going on, and in one way or another make his presence felt to increase the faith of the jiva that's struggling with the material energy. So, and that's why sometimes it can be a little difficult. If you see another devotee and you think, he's gone through so much difficulty, I couldn't go through that type of difficulty. But that's his journey with his Lord in the heart. It's not your journey. You have a particular relationship and a particular path. And so you have to just tread your path. That's why it's advised, don't deride anybody that's maybe having some difficulty, because you don't really know what he's going through, what he's undergone, what he needs to learn. This is all directly between him and Krishna. We should be concerned with ourselves, really. If someone's flying a plane and you're flying a plane, and the person flying the plane is all over the place, and then you become distracted and start, shouting out the plane, "You're a terrible driver. That's useless. Look at you. You're all over the place." Then you lose control of your own plane. You lose focus on what you're doing. So just fly your own plane. Srila Prabhupada said at the time of death, we all fly our own planes. So we're all on our own at the time of death. So we have to learn how to do that now. It's no good going to an exam, and as you go to sit down to do the test, you write on it, by the way, such and such a person is rubbish at the subject, and this person's also rubbish and this one's no good either, and this one's going to probably fail as well, because that's not going to help you to pass, is it? In your exam. And the examiner doesn't really care about what your opinion is of everybody else in the class either. That's the last thing he's interested in. He just wants to see if you know the answers, if you've been training properly, if you've been applying properly the principles that you're supposed to be learning. That's all he's interested in. So it's not your, you don't have to worry about anything else, unless you've been put in charge of others. That's why being a spiritual master is a difficult service to do, because you take responsibility for others. Any other questions or comments? So it's quite a heavy one, but
there's been a conversation going on between people that sort of raising questions about whether illicit sex includes within a marriage, but outside of the once a month only for a child.
Yeah. Well, that's what you'll get. You'll get a spectrum of application in an international society, especially. You'll have all kinds of weird and wonderful ways of applying it, and you can say, well, this is better than this, and it is better than this, but then there's better still, and they can maybe even cite examples. But Srila Prabhupada said this in this situation. But contextually, if you look at what Prabhupada is saying, you'd have to read all 90 books, and if you did that, then you would see that the general principle is that it's for procreation, and it's not even that when it's for procreation that still there's a 6-hour preparation even then, and the whole point of that is that by the time procreation takes place, it's you've been sufficiently chastened by the austerities you've performed in the first place, that it allows you to become less entangled, less enamored by the gratification that is there, you know. Sri Jayadvaita Swami explained once that the gratification is really the relief of the agitation that's been caused. So if you prepare 6 hours beforehand, the agitation's kind of been removed, and so it's not the same. It's not the same enjoyment. It's like if you're eating something and you've not eaten for 3 weeks. It's not the same as eating something when you've just eaten, half an hour ago. It's a lot more controlled. You're not so starved. So the practice of devotional service is to satiate the senses, to control the senses and subdue them so that they're not so ravenous anymore. So then you can proceed in a very elegant and dignified way. Okay, so now we're going to do this. And the main focus becomes, see, the big price you pay is if you go all out for just gratification at the moment and really, really get into the enjoying mood and just really relish the sensation of the whole act. That you could say, well, that was a lot more pleasurable than doing it the other way. But the downside is that you'll have a child to look after now for at least 25 years. In fact, really speaking, you don't ever really give up your debt, your duty of looking after the child. One time, Shiv Ramraj, he was 60 years old, and he was flying somewhere, and his mother phoned up, and he spoke to one of Shiv Ramraj's friends, and he said, "It's okay, you don't have to worry." And she said, "You can't say that to a mother. A mother always worries, even if a child is 60 years old. She can't stop worrying, you know." So why throw all that to the wind for some fleeting gratification, when if you do, it's a transmission of life into the womb. It's a significant. I mean, imagine being a scientist and saying, I'm going to create life with this test tube, and all the cameras were watching, you know, and it was an immense occasion in history. He's going to create life, you know, and everyone's, you know, they're all, you know, it's a very significant thing that's taking place. So best not to cheapen that, but fully understand the profound significance of what's taking place, And then the child that will take birth from that womb will be of profoundly good character. And your whole life will be a joy bringing up this child. In fact, the child is called Putra. Put means hell and Tra means release. So if it's a good child, you're guaranteed that this child will release you from any complicated reactions you endure after this life. So that is such a blessing. That's why in the Vedic culture, it was the king. If the king didn't have a son, he was very concerned, because who's going to do the rites for him when he leaves his body, and who's going to give him his punya, his sukriti, his pious credit, if he doesn't have a son, So the son that just comes out of the genitals due to relief is like urine. It comes from the same place, and he's of no use. So the son, the worthy son, that's something which is, it doesn't just happen by accident. You have to prepare for that. And, there's a whole meditation and consciousness even before, like you marry the woman and you develop love and respect for her. So this is all fertile ground for implanting a child. It's not just the gross, there's a lot of subtle things going on as well, that you both feel very committed to each other, and it's a high integrity relationship. Shishi Karunitai Maya Pashashiki Jai. Because if you try and grow something in useless and you haven't bothered, you just say, well, I've just got the seed, I need to plant it straight away. But Prabhu, if you do it over there, it doesn't look very good, the ground. I don't care, I just have to get it in the ground quick. Get out my way. And you just push the seed in amongst a load of weeds, and it kind of grows, but doesn't get proper sunlight. And the soil's terrible, and it struggles and struggles and struggles all the time. Well, why not just take the time, look around, find some really nice ground? So that's what the proper... and then the children are such a joy. Prabhupada said it's spit society because they discharge like spit. As soon as there's some agitation, just spit, no consideration. So this is to contrast that illusion of thinking everything will just be okay as long as I'm enjoying myself, everything will be fine. So this is to highlight, no, you need to be very cautious. You're in the forest of enjoyment now, and there's danger there. You have to watch out. If I dropped you off now in the Amazon, you'd be Googling, if you could get a signal anyway, you'd be Googling again what's poisonous, which spiders I have to watch out for. There's some frogs that if you just touch them, you can die from the poison, So you're in the forest of enjoyment. You need to know where the ditches, where the dangerous thorn bushes are, where the insects, the ones that bite you and you die in 12 seconds are. Then you also need to know, well, what's the medicines I need to take? I've just been bitten by this insect. Okay, you need to get 3 of these leaves, ground them up, make a tea, and drink it immediately. You need to know all the remedies as well. That's the forest of enjoyment. Not just, well, everything will be fine. You've got your earphones in and you're just bopping along. Well, I'm bound to get to the end of it sooner or later. You could be going around in circles in the forest of enjoyment for years. You just don't know where you are, You're just wandering around. You have to find the path that's been treaded by the Mahajans. Okay, so this is the way out, okay. So there's no option. You can't say, well, I don't fancy that path. I'll take this one over here. Not if you want to get out anyway. Because you could take the long path.
An experience that I've had with the gardening, it's been quite profound actually. At the beginning there was some feedback that I was being overzealous with my reading, and it just didn't quite feel right. And the example you gave is really on point, that there's things that are just quickly planted and overcome by weeds and they're not fruiting.
Yeah.
And it's just to take the time in meditation, but then for me it's finding a balance of kind of, I don't know, is it verging on procrastination, wanting to be perfect before beginning something, and finding the right place for everything.
Yeah, well, perfection is perfection is really in the consciousness that our intention is to do everything as nicely as we possibly can. So that's the perfection. Prabhupada said our success is our enthusiasm. So if you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to get out of bed, then you're going to be successful that day. In fact, it's already a success. But if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, oh no, another day of devotional service, it's going to be the old samsara dava. And I bet you it'll be that one singing as well. And then it'll be the usual dal and rice and some soggy breadsticks. And then it'll be 8 hours hard labor. So, and you may get up that day and do everything fine, and it looks okay the way you're doing everything. But it's the enthusiasm, the excitement, the inspiration to do things that is the thing that we really want. That's the thing that really pleases Krishna. When Krishna sees you doing something and you're relishing doing it, you're so pleased that you've got the chance to do some service that you could almost cry with gratitude. That's when you start pleasing Krishna. You're thinking, I'm so unworthy, I shouldn't even be given a chance. And I'm getting a chance. So that's the real perfection. Because the devotees were laughing at this devotee. He'd been told by his Guru Maharaj to read the Bhagavad Gita. Now, he couldn't actually read, but he decided that was going to be a minor detail. He just wanted to follow what his Guru Maharaj had told him to do. So he was trying to read the Bhagavad Gita. And that would have been fine, but for the fact he was holding the Bhagavad Gita upside down. So everybody else was laughing at him because they thought, he obviously can't read it. He doesn't even know it's not the right way up in his hands, And so they were laughing at him. And but this devotee was crying all the time. And Lord Chaitanya came up and he said, why are you crying? And he said, well, when I think of how Krishna has stepped down to serve his devotee. And someone was explaining this recently, actually. It's quite a humble position to be a chariot driver, because when we see the chariots, we see them like that, but apparently they weren't like that. The chariot driver was much lower, and the fighter was on this higher level, and he would touch the shoulders of the chariot driver with his feet. So he would suddenly go like that. That meant a sharp left or sharp right. And the chariot driver was just... So that's very, very humble to do that. And so when he thought of that, he would just start crying. And Lord Chaitanya said, you have understood the Bhagavad Gita. So that's perfection. And he wouldn't know a sloka to save his life. And all his friends that were laughing at him probably thought they did know the Bhagavad Gita. So the perfection is the bhav, the emotion with which you do something. If you have the bhav in the heart, so that when you're chanting, you're relishing the chanting, you're so happy to be getting to chant. There's one devotee in Hungary, she was chanting and she was crying because she'd heard that when you chant inattentively, it hurts Krishna. It's like throwing spears at Krishna. It hurts him so much when you're chanting inattentively. And she was crying, I hope I'm not hurting you by my chanting. She was feeling so remorseful, And she was a very elevated devotee, actually, as far as we can see. But so that should be the bhav, that we're chanting and we're feeling very emotional, Shouldn't just be like a blank, mechanical. I am chanting Hare Krishna. I am following the process perfectly. I am doing everything perfectly. Should be with that bhav in the heart, that loving appreciation and feeling grateful, feeling unworthy as well, feeling very humble. This is what we're trying to, we're aspiring to achieve. Now, you can't pretend to be like that, but it should come. It should be able to, with the knowledge that we have, we should be able to work it out, that this is how we should be feeling, It's like you may have amnesia and I say, well, I'm going to introduce you now to a lady that you love very, very much, and you've been separated now for 6 months, And because you've got amnesia, you don't know who she is. And I'm going to start telling you about her. And as you're being told, then you start remembering what a beautiful relationship you had with this person. And then more and more you're able to start feeling the bhava, the love that's there, the appropriate emotions will start to come, you know. That's what Bhagavatam is, really. Bhagavatam is to help us become aware of the beautiful pastimes of the Lord, so that we start to refamiliarize ourselves with where we've come from, you know. It's our real home. So yeah, we're in the forest of enjoyment. So it's good to have some stern warnings. They say that practicing Krishna consciousness is like being in the forest, and every now and again there's a thunderbolt, and as the thunderbolt comes across the heavens, the whole forest illuminates for a second, and you're able to see where the path is, where the ditch is, where the poisonous frog is, and then it goes densely dark again. And then you proceed along on the path as you remember it, waiting for the next bolt of lightning. And that bolt of lightning, that epiphany, is really what just keeps us sustained in Krishna consciousness. Maybe initially we have some epiphany and we take up Krishna consciousness, and then we're stumbling around in the darkness again. So all the time when we're chanting, we should be begging for that bolt of illumination to come back in. Tesham evanukampatam, jnana deepena vasvata. Vasvata is glowing. The jnana deepena is the glowing lamp of knowledge, and it illuminates the dark inner recess of the heart to show them special mercy. I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance, the darkness born of ignoring somebody. You've been ignoring somebody very important in your life. Every time he goes to say something, you're telling your back, no, you don't exist. No, you don't exist. No, don't say anything. You don't exist. So that's the darkness of ignorance. If you keep ignoring, then you end up in darkness. And you can't blame the sun on the fact that you've got your back to it. Things could be fine if you would just turn back around toward the sun. There's no darkness in the sun. It's just because we've turned our back. So quite a heavy purport really, but material world is a heavy place actually. So we're just trying to get real, aren't we? Realization means we're just trying to come in contact with reality. Reality doesn't mean, okay, so we can be aware of what reality is, but that doesn't mean we have to be discouraged or unhappy, because we have the solution, we have the positive option. But still, we should be, Srila Prabhupada said, it's good to be pessimistic about material life. Somebody was saying, I'm so worried about what's going to happen in the future. And then somebody else said to this devotee, I'm so worried about what's going to happen in the future. And then somebody else said to this devotee, I'm so worried about what's going to happen in the future. So this devotee got a little bit fed up and he said, I'll tell you what's going to happen in the future. You're going to grow old and you're going to die. That's what's going to happen in the future. So don't worry about it. That's it. So any other questions or comments? So Krishna is saying that nobody can get away with anything. So that's also something which it's a kind of it's a thing which has kind of crept in. If people are leading or trying to lead a God-conscious life, but the information about God is very scant, then they may not fully grasp when we're talking about God what that actually means. It means an all-knowing, cognizant, omnipotent, supreme person who is unrestricted and unlimited by any material dimension or law. So the idea has crept in that God is there, but if there is a God, he's probably a nice guy and everything, but he sometimes he's a bit forgetful. Sometimes he kind of bumbles around a bit, and you can get away with things as well if you do things in the dark, and you're way, way, way far away from a church. You can do sneaky things, and he's not really aware of what's going on, and you'll be okay as long as you just turn up and say, sorry if I did anything wrong. You'll be fine. He's not that on the ball, really, actually, to tell you the truth. So this kind of idea creeps in, and then people could become atheists because they think, well, if that's what God is, I don't think I believe that. Sounds like a pretty puny God to me, you see. So then people lose interest because he's not being presented properly. And then they get interested in Superman instead. Because Superman, he's really cool. Because he's not eternal, which is a bit of a bummer, isn't it? But and he does grow old as well. But he can fly around with his tights on and lift trains up and do good stuff, So God becomes like a kind of second-rate Superman, really. But that's not what he is, you see. So we need to clarify, first of all, when someone says they don't believe in God, say, when you say you don't believe in God, do you mean you don't believe in a misconception of something, which is the original source of everything? And then you could clarify that and find out the person isn't really an atheist. He's just a very, very intelligent potential theist if he can be presented with the truth. So don't do God an injustice. It's a blasphemy, really, to say that God would, an all-knowing God would allow the jiva to stay eternally in a suffering condition. How could any cognizant being, sentient being, be happy with his son forever? Why even, if he's all-knowing, why even create something that's going to potentially suffer for eternity? Why would you even bother? And you think, I'll create Jimmy Jones. Oh no, I won't create Jimmy Jones because Jimmy Jones is going to end up in hell forever. So I won't even bother with that one. That was a bad idea. We'll create Paul Goodson instead. And Paul Goodson, he's going to be such a good boy. And that's great. So I'll just create them. But God is all-knowing, so he doesn't create anyone wonky. Everyone is perfect. Everyone is potentially, initially pure, and will potentially be pure again. Everyone is actually a pure devotee. That's actually the fact, And God knows this better than anybody, so he just waits patiently till the naughty boy. Everyone wins the race, actually, that's the fact. Just that when some come in, they're really, really, really hammered. They've really been through the treadmill a few times. But then they get the biggest cheer of all. So that's why Lord Chaitanya came, Padita Pavan, he came for the most fallen first, because they're potentially the ones that will suffer the most. So they're the ones I'm especially concerned with. So he saved Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai were so sinful that the scribe, Chitragupta, that was writing everything down, it was a library of catalogued events that had taken place that were condemning these two personalities, Jagai and Madai. And that our whole pastime was there to reassure us that there is no disqualification for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. The most fallen. Your disqualification is your qualification. The more disqualified you are, then the more qualified you are for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Any questions or comments? Patita Pavana Gaura Hari. And so you can't come up with anything. There's nothing that you can do that's going to surprise Lord Chaitanya. He's seen it all. Jagai Madai have been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And they got up to some really... Jayapataka Maharaj, one time we were on the top of the roof in Mayapur, and I think it was the Conch buildings, and he was reading from this scripture, and it had listed all the things that they'd done. Sex with a minor, sex with mother, everything in the Manu Samhita. They'd gone through it systematically and done everything that it said you shouldn't do. Everything. Ate cow, killed, raped, anything. They'd done it all. And the whole point of that pastime is to show us that that you can win the race, no matter how far down the ditch you fell. You can get up and go on. Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. ISKCON Govinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hari Bol. Gaura Bhaktarinda ki jai.